Anyway, we're going to do a thought experiment to start off with. So, everyone in this room can do what I'm going to ask you to do, regardless of your role or position, okay? This is what I want you to do. I hope it's not too dramatic. I want you to think about the most misbehaving student that you have ever met. Now, maybe it was a student that you met, I don't know, last week or last year or a couple of years ago. Maybe it was a student that you went to university with or you did your A-levels with. Maybe it was when you were at secondary school or junior school or primary school. Look, I don't know, it might even be you. But nevertheless, the most misbehaving student that you've ever met, right? And I want you to make an assessment of their motivation to learn in the classroom, okay? So, 10 is very, 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 very motivated to learn. 1 is no evidence of motivation to learn. No evidence of motivation to learn. You cannot look into their brain, you cannot see their neurons firing, so you're going to have to base this on their behavior, okay? Okay. So 10 is very, very motivated to learn. 1 is no evidence of motivation to learn. I'm not going to pick on you, I promise, but if you've got a number now, nod. And I am checking everyone. I am. I'm looking around slowly. That's good. Everyone nodding. Right. This is the brave bit. I mean, really, the brave bit. Also, the dangerous bit because you have coffee. I'm going to slowly count from 1 to 10. Whenever I get to your number, I want you to stand up and stay standing up, okay? Don't look left or right to see whether your friend's doing it. You're an independent adult with your own thoughts, okay? Here we go. Are you ready? Be brave. 1. Thank you, brave people. Stay standing. 2. That's very, very interesting. 3. Oh my goodness, we're well over 50%, and in fact, if you were those at the front turned around, you'd be able to see that. Thank you very much. We've made a point. Take a seat very, very carefully, and no one got coffee on the head. That's reassuring. Okay, what did we prove? Well, it's a big goal moment, that there is a connection between misbehaviour and motivation to learn. Whether it's causal or not is a different question, but nevertheless, there is a link. Thought experiment number 2. This might be hard, I don't know. I want you to think about a student that's been doing extremely well, a student that you've met over the course of your life, a student that's been doing really, really well, right? But for a period of time now, they've kind of hit a ceiling. They're kind of plateauing. They were going that way, but now they have plateaued, okay? I'm not going to pick on anyone, I promise, but if you've got a student like that in mind, can you put your hand up now so I get a sense? That's enough for me. For all those who just put up their hands, here's a follow-up question. The student that you are thinking about, are they the sort of student that would take educational risks just for the sake of learning, or would they fear failure? Take risks or fear failure, take risks for the sake of learning, or fear failure. I'm going to count to 3. On 3, either say take risks or fear failures. There's no rights and wrongs. Are you ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Well, we had some definite take risks there. We also had a good chunk of fears, failure. No, not everyone did it. We had some differences of opinion. Let's go for a small goal. But maybe there is a link between plateauing and this fear of failure, perhaps. Thought experiment number 3. I'm going to give you 4 statements about intelligence, and I want you to decide in the privacy of your own brain whether you strongly agree, mostly agree, partly disagree, mostly agree, disagree, strongly disagree with the statement that I'm just about to get. If you cannot see, I suggest that you move around to where you can. Okay, that's fine too. So, this is what we're going to do. Are you ready? Statement number 1. Your intelligence is something very basic about you that you can't change very much. Strongly agree all the way down to strongly disagree. Statement 2. You can learn new things, but you can't really change how intelligent you are. Statement 3. No matter how much intelligence you have, you can always change it quite a bit. And statement 4. You can always substantially change how intelligent you are. Now, as some of you may know, those 4 statements were put together by this lady here Professor Carol Dweck, and she said that your responses to those statements can be used to scientifically determine whether you've got something called a fixed mindset about intelligence or a growth mindset about intelligence. So let's just go back to them again. Your intelligence is something very basic about you. You can't change very much. You can learn new things, but you can't really change how intelligent you are. If you'd answered strongly agree, mostly agree, partly agree, chances are, scientifically speaking, you have a fixed mindset about intelligence. If you'd answered partly disagree, mostly disagree, strongly disagree, chances are, scientifically speaking, growth. Here's 3 and 4. No matter how much intelligence you have, you can always change it quite a bit. You can always substantially change how intelligent you are. Strongly agree down to partly agree. Growth, the other way, fixed. So what's the difference? Well, if you've got a fixed mindset about intelligence, you believe that your intelligence is fixed and that you can do nothing about it, you are just using what you were given at birth, right? It is as predetermined as your eye colour, your eventual leg length, or whether or not your hair will recede. Thanks, Dad. But if you have a growth mindset about intelligence, you believe that you can make yourself more intelligent through what you do. Now, here's the thing. The way that you think about intelligence affects how intelligent you are. That's so important that I'm going to say it again. The way you think about intelligence affects how intelligent you are. Let me prove it to you. Let's just say that you have a fixed mindset about intelligence, right? That is, you can't make yourself any more intelligent, you're just using what you've already got. And challenges present themselves. Well, challenges are, by their very nature, challenging. You might fail. There is no guarantee of success. So if you've got a fixed mindset about intelligence, how do you respond to challenges? Well, you avoid them. You keep your hand down. You don't volunteer. Now, challenges are optional. You can choose to do them or choose not to do them. Obstacles aren't. They're those things that get in the way of where we are to where we want to be. So if you've got a fixed mindset about intelligence, how do you respond to obstacles? Well, you will give it a go, almost certainly. But as soon as it gets difficult for you, or if you like, challenging, you give up. And what about effort? How do you view effort? Well, given that effort is difficult and strenuous and kind of hurts your brain a little bit, right? And it makes no difference. It cannot make you any more intelligent than you currently are. What do you think about effort? Well, it's pointless. And I bet this is ringing a bell with your voluntary work. And what about feedback? If you get a bit of feedback, right, how do you respond to that? If you've got a fixed mindset about intelligence, well, you attack it. You say no, you bother, you see it as an attack. Because it's a comment about a fixed, innate feature of you, your intelligence. And what about the success of others? Well, if you've got a fixed mindset about intelligence, you're always grading yourself. And it's a fixed hierarchy. You can't do anything about it. So someone else's success for you is a threat. My God, this is miserable, isn't it? This is just absolutely, you don't have to agree about it. This is absolutely miserable. But there's a different way to look at it. Not fixed, but growth. And if you have a growth mindset about intelligence, how do you respond to challenges? Well, you go, yippee, a challenge, and you embrace it. You want it. You seek it out. And what about obstacles? What do you do over obstacles? If you've got a growth mindset about intelligence, well, you persist and persist and persist and persist and persist and persist. And effort, how do you view effort? Is it pointless for you? No. For you, effort is and it can only be said this way, forgive me. Effort is the path to mastery. Effort is the path to mastery. And feedback, if you get a bit of feedback and you've got a growth mindset, how do you respond to it? You think it's a learning opportunity. You want good quality feedback that will allow you to move from where you are to where you want to be. And the success of others, is it a threat? No, it's an inspiration. You will have a view that goes something like this. If she can do it, if he can do it, if they can do it, then I can do it too. It's just a question of being open to and incorporating feedback and keeping the effort up, because effort is, after all, the path to mastery. So it begs the question, who's right? Is intelligence fixed and unchanging, or can it be increased through effort? You're never going to guess which way I'm going to go with this. But when I was growing up, last century, and I think there are other people in the room with me too, in fact, last millennium, when I was at school, the dominant idea of this thing here, your brain, was that it was fixed, it was non-dynamic. Now the scientific view, is that your brain is like a muscle. The more you use it, the bigger and and stronger it gets. The early indication of this, by the way, was work with zoo animals. They went into a zoo. They weighed the brains out of animals who are in cages all on their own, with no other animals to interact with, no toys to play with. Then they weighed the brains of animals of the same species who were in environments where there are other animals to interact with, to play with, toys to play with. They found that this stimulated group had brains that were, on average, 10% heavier than the non-stimulated group. Wow, it's like a muscle. The more you use it, the bigger it gets. And we know it too because of London taxi drivers. I don't mean to say that you go into a London taxi and the London taxi driver says to you, yeah, I don't know if you know this, your brain just like a muscle, mate. That'll be free protein, £1.50, please. I don't mean that. What's that thing that they have to do? You know, that the knowledge, right? That ability to get from any point A in London to any point B in London without the need to swear. It's a fantastic achievement. And they're able to do that because they store all that information, all that memory in their hippocampus of their brains. It's much enlarged. We also know it too, actually, because of an experiment they did in 2011 in Berlin. They got 24 adults. They randomly assigned them to two groups, a control group of 12, a juggling group. But before they did anything, they did a functional MRI scan of their brains. They were looking for the motion processing areas of the brain to get some baseline data. So they have the control group, they have the juggling group. They teach the juggling group to juggle so they can juggle for about a minute, right? And then they say to the juggling group, okay, go away, juggling group, and juggle for 3 months. Yes, of course you can go to the loo, of course you can go to sleep, of course you can go to work, but in between those times, juggle as much as you possibly can. They came back after 3 months, they did another functional MRI scan of their brains. What did they find? They found that those neural connections, those motion processing areas, were more dense with more new neural networks. Wow. Then they said something really interesting. They said to the juggling group, go away and don't juggle for 3 months. Stop juggling for 3 months. Come back, they did another functional MRI scan. Those new neural pathways, gone. They were now, once again, like the control group. It's like a muscle. The more you use it, the bigger and stronger it gets. In a follow-up study in 2014, they wanted to know how quickly those neural changes happen. They did a functional MRI after 31 days, 21 days, 7 days. Those new neural connections had already begun to be created after 7 days. Wow. So the science is saying that the place inside our skulls is a dynamic place. It's also what the scientists are saying too. Professor Marvin Minsky, a cognitive scientist, I love this. He says, the main activity of brains is to change themselves. The main activity of mind, right, is to think about what you're going to do for tea, or the holiday that's coming up, or who will be the next person to be bumped off in Game of Thrones. But your main activity of your brain is to change itself as a result of stimulus that's happening out there. Or, as this guy, Professor Donald Hebb, said 50 years ago, neurons that fire together, wire together. And intelligence is not the number of neurons you have. We roughly all have the same amount, 86 billion. Intelligence is the connections between those neurons. And guess what? We're in charge of those connections through what we do. We make them. I'm going to share the posh word for this malleability of the brain's ability to rewire itself. It's called neuroplasticity. Hands up, who's heard of that word? A good number, a reassuring number. Sometimes it's shortened to plasticity. Why plasticity? Well, something is said to be plastic if it can change its shape and retain that shape. I believe every student, every teacher, every parent, every member of Beanstalk should know that word, neuroplasticity. No questions, can't take, because I just do not have the time. But come on, Robin! For goodness sake! Surely some people are just born more intelligent than others. Yeah, it's a good question. I'm very glad. It's this lady's question down here, and I'm very glad it's been asked. Well, we do know that there is a genetic component to intelligence, right? We know that exists. However, you cannot look at person A or person B. No, you cannot look at baby A and baby B and say baby A is more intelligent. There is no test to be able to determine that. IQ tests don't do it, they're developmental. If they weren't, right, parents, like up in Bucks, would not be spending the money that they do to get their kids trained up to pass the 11 plus to get into grammar schools, their development. But even if, right, A is born more intelligent than B, it might not even be the most vital factor. This is what we know. If B engages with a task and continues to engage with that task and listens to and incorporates feedback, changes will happen in the brain and learning will take place. Engage, keep on engaging, incorporate feedback, changes will happen in the brain and learning will take place. Engage, keep on engaging, incorporate feedback, changes will happen in the brain and learning will take place. Oh, one too many. And who's to say, right, excuse the pun that's just about to come up, with that dogged approach. I know, I'm taking it out next time, it's just that bad. What B's potential is this? But we do know this, right? If A is born more intelligent than B, well, actually, if A doesn't take that dogged approach, it's bye-bye. I think this picture is good for another reason too. It underlines the fact that we can teach old dogs new tricks. This is as applicable to us as parents, as adults, as grandparents perhaps, to the students that we're sitting down with to work, as applicable to us, our brains,